give us your thoughts as we look ahead to next week. The EU might indeed bring us the AI Act. How do you think policymakers are doing at looking at artificial intelligence?
Well, the good news is that they're paying a lot more attention than they have in the past. And actually that Congress has gotten a lot smarter about tech over the past couple of years, in part due to efforts with Tech Congress and organizations like Fox Foundation, where they're really out there helping get people with great tech skills in and around Congress to help them be able to have just a more deeper understanding of the core technology and the kinds of things it's going to do to our society. There's some bad news, too, which is that this is going to be a lot harder than some of the tech challenges that have come at our government in the past. AI is just, going to be far more disruptive, and the truth is that we really don't know what it's going to do to us yet. We don't understand it the way that we at least are starting to understand things like social media.
Okay, so when we think about also the immediacy of the issues, what we've heard on one front is the anxiety about ultimately AI causing mass extinction. That seems to be some of the issues being proposed by Sam Altman, the guy leading the charge when it comes to OpenAI. But then there's people who try to really remind us of the here, the now, the issues of bias, the issues of already using facial recognition and AI when it comes to recognizing crime. What do you think policymakers need to be looking at from a short-term and longer-term perspective?
They need to understand that there's different types of threats that come with AI. There are certainly societal-type threats. There's, yes, certainly existential threats like this extinction. And then there's the threats of what humans might do with it, what bad actors might do. And the kinds of policies that will address these different types are going to have to be quite distinct. So you're going to need people who understand what the technology can do today, more importantly, what it is likely to be able to do tomorrow. But you're also going to have really smart policy people who understand how to create policy that's adaptable as we learn what these technologies can do in these areas. And of course, with each of these areas of real threat also comes real potential benefit. And we need policymakers who are going to understand not just how to mitigate the downsides, but how to make sure that we as a society get the advantages of what upsides these things can bring.
Jennifer, it seems like a lifetime ago, but it was only 6 weeks when Vice President Kamala Harris gathered the great and the good of the world of AI and said that the White House would do something. Have they done something?
The executive branch has its own special relationship to technology, much like the legislative
Define that
branch.
special relationship for us. What do you mean by a special relationship?
My book takes a sort of historical look at government's relationship to technology, going all the way back to the 60s. When we defined technology as something commercial, it would be something that government would buy, and therefore powerful people in government would need to really understand how it works. It'd just be something you buy, the way you buy pencils or cars. And over time, we've had attempts by the legislative branch, like in the 1990s with the Clinger-Cohen Act, to say this is something more than just a tool of the mechanicals here in government, the people who implement things. It's actually fundamental to our society. We need people in government who understand it. So in 1996, Senator Cohen and Representative Clinger asked the White House to take responsibility for a digital strategy. And in fact, they said no. They said that's inconsistent with the policy nature of this institution. It's operational and therefore not something we should do. So in that case, you had Congress actually being more forward-looking, saying this is something we need as a core competency in our government, and the executive branch saying, nope, we're not going to do it. Now, sometimes we've seen that in the reverse, where you have the executive branch really, having things like the Office of Science and Technology Policy, trying to have people who understand technology in the building, able to participate in critical conversations, and you had Congress behind for a while. So they kind of, weave in and out of having the competencies they need, but I think both now really see that you can't separate technology from governing. You really must have people who understand it at the table when policy is being made.
Jennifer, how important is education? I'm talking about children at high school, any level, in the AI story in this country and globally?
You know, our kids today are sort of growing up in a very different world than we did. They're getting an education just in their daily lives. I do think they need to understand how these algorithms are going to affect them. As you said earlier, that there may be bias in them. And the degree to which AI is so hard to actually see what is going on under the hood needs to be part of just a basic literacy that our kids get. And that needs to be built into policy as well.